On Saturday, July 27th, the radio landscape of Winnipeg and southern Manitoba will change forever. For more than 40 years, Terry Klippenstein has been a host on radio stations such as CFAM in Altona, AM 1250 from Steinbach, CJRB from Boissevain, and of course, Classic 107. He, like myself, have been here since the very beginning of 107, but on Saturday, he will be signing off the airwaves. Terry will be retiring from a long and very illustrious career with Golden West Broadcasting. Aside from his dulcet tones on the air, Terry is also a living historical figure and legend when it comes to radio. He's seen the medium in all its different facets, from the days of records with turntables to the reel-to-reel machines to the automation system we currently work with. And joining me virtually here to talk about his career and all things radio and his retirement, I am joined by my good friend, the man, the myth, the legend, the icon, the
Jeez.
luminary, Terry Klippenstein. Hey, Terry, great to talk to you.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be here.
So it's the last couple of days before you say adios for good. How does it feel to be, well, looking down retirement?
It doesn't feel quite real yet. I mean, I've done a lot of last things over the past week, over the past month, actually. And of course, in January, when I told my program director that I would be retiring in the end of July, it felt like a long time away yet. And even at the beginning of July, I thought, well, it's still a month, and it's probably going to drag by, but it hasn't. It's actually gone by quite quickly, and I take that as a good sign because I enjoy my work, and I think if I didn't, then it would have felt more draggy. But yeah, it's kind of surreal, and I don't know how long it's going to take to sink in that I'm not coming to work every day. Not having to get up at 5 o'clock every day. It may take till the, I don't know, end of August, September. I don't know.
Jeez. Okay. Can you talk about how you first got into radio for our listeners who don't know? You were like right in high school or just after high school. Is that right?
I was actually in high school, and my brother Mike had got a job at CFAM here in Altona as an on-air announcer, and eventually he moved into engineering. But he was working at CFAM, and I needed a part-time job. I wanted a part-time job. Got to have money to buy a car. Got a car to get off. Have a car to get off the farm, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I got a part-time job at CFAM. I was hired by then program director Jim McSweeney, and at the time I had a bit of a stammering problem, and I don't think I held out a lot of hope that I'd get hired. Um, I thought, like, why would a radio station hire a guy who stammers? Didn't make any sense, at least not in my mind. But I got the job, and I've made a practice over the years to always be willing to learn. Whatever it is I got to learn, I try to learn. And even now, in my last number of years here, if we install new software for some purpose, I try to learn it. And if it, pertains to my work. And so that's been important. But that's how I got hired. I worked evenings at CFAM. I ran voice tracks. I cleaned off the telex machine back then. That day we still had paper that we read off of. The weather forecast. I had to phone on a rotary phone for temperatures because we got our temperatures from a weather service. But in order to get those, you had to phone a certain number, and they would dictate the temperatures from different locations around Manitoba. And you'd write them down. You'd bring them into the control room on a piece of paper.
Oh, man.
So that's how I began.
In 40 years, what's been the biggest change for you when it comes to radio? Like, is there one thing that just sort of was a complete game changer for you?
I think it's moving into the digital world. When I began, radio was still pretty much the way it had been when CFAM went on the air in 1957. It was reel-to-reel tape machines. It was vinyl LPs. It was carts. Carts are somewhat like 8-track players, 8-track cartridges, except they're single track. You'd put all kinds of audio on these carts, and it was Olivetti typewriters. It was all those things. And then in 1999, we moved into a new building in Altona, and we switched over to working with computers in every way, in every department, including production and on the air. And
Mhm.
that, I think, was the biggest change. It was a good change. Overall, it was a very good change because it allowed you to do things that much faster that you hadn't been able to do before. Before editing a piece of audio meant actually physically cutting tape and putting a piece of tape over it. And you could make it sound, I learned how to make it sound clean. It sounded very good. But talk about time consuming. And that's just
Yeah.
one edit. Now you go into an audio piece of audio editing software and you do it in a couple of seconds. Done, you go to the next thing. You just whip through your audio, you clean it up. It's much faster. Of course, with that speed, a lot more things land on your plate too. So that's the other side of it. You're also doing a lot more. But
Yeah.
I think that would be the biggest change.
Yeah, I remember talking to a former program director, and he was talking about cutting tape. And you'd say all the on airs, whenever they're cutting tape, they'd always have cuts on the side of their mouth because as they're working, where the razor blade's got to go somewhere, right? So it's got to go
Go in the mouth.
in the mouth.
Yeah.
They cut it up that way.
Yeah,
Um,
they had bigger smiles back then.
yeah, yeah. Right. Do you miss working with records and doing things in real time?
You know, I don't know that I do. I miss there's a certain like I know there's a certain warmth to vinyl LP, anything on vinyl. It definitely sounds different. We have a few pieces of music in our library that were recorded off of vinyl, and you can tell there's something to that it has a character, it has a warmth, it has a tone that you just don't get on a digital recording. I might
Mm,
miss that a little bit. Um, But really, there's so much that I can do from my studio right here. I'm sitting in one spot. I can I can prepare my shows. I can voice them. I can voice commercials. I can do everything that I have to do. I can upload audio, edit audio. I do it all from one spot. In fact, it's to the point where I have to find a reason to get up and walk around. So I'm not sitting down all day. But no, my basically I don't. I mean, you look back at some of these things and you can be a little bit sentimental and nostalgic, and uh, the old stuff is fun to collect. But I kind of like working digital for the most part.
yeah, yeah. One of the things that strikes me about the switch over is for our listeners, if you played off radio or sorry, off records, you needed to write down, the host would need to write down every single track that they played. Nowadays it's done through computer, which is so you're yeah, there's the time constraint there of, having somebody actually having to copy that out and report it to local agencies.
And for us, it also involved we had a music library where we kept all our LPs. They physically had to be stacked. They were stacked on an office chair. They were rolled into the control room, and they were stacked in back on a shelf. And
Yeah.
then when you started your shift, you got your stack of records. You piled them up on top of your turntable. We had a special shelf unit on top of the turntable. You piled them up there, and
Mhm.
then when you played the song that's indicated on your music list, you put the LP back in the jacket and you put it in a different place. Always moving lots of things back and forth physically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You've been with Golden West for 43 years. You've done thousands of interviews and seen it all. Are there a couple of memorable moments that pop out in your mind?
Oh boy. I remember I remember talking to Eric Friesen one time. That was I found that file quite some time ago. I think that must have been on the occasion of one of our anniversaries, I think.
Mhm.
That must and it would have been after I began working in our classical department, taking over from Ron James. So it would have been 2009 or after, but I quite honestly can't remember the occasion. Um, Memorable time. Here's one that's not at all related to radio. It's related to more to the guys I was working with. The master control room that we had in the original CFAM studio had a window in the back. And in summertime, you'd have prop that window open because it got hot in the studio.
Yeah, Hmm.
And so I'm doing evening news and I'm in the middle of a story, and all of a sudden this great big explosion sounds outside my window. And one of the guys that I worked with set off a rather large firecracker in back of the window just as a gag.
Oh,
So in the middle of my news story, I got up, I slammed the window shut, I sat back down, and I finished my story, and then I went on with the rest of my show. That that stands out just because it was one of those things. I was young, the guys I was working with were young, and yeah, I so many things have happened over the 40 plus years that I've been with the company. It's really difficult to dip back into that and think of one particular item.
can you talk about how you got talked into being a voice on Classic 107? And I assume you had more knowledge than the rest of us about the station's beginnings. Can you talk about that a bit and how that whole process went down?
Well, when CFAM went on the air in 1957, they were strong on classical music, and in fact, if I'm not mistaken, most of the music that we aired was classical and inspirational at the time.
Mm,
And classical has always been a priority for CFAM. That hasn't changed the whole time that I've been here. When Ron James wasn't able to continue in his position in 2009, I was asked if I would be interested in taking over from him. And I'd listened to Ron. I'd run his voice tracks for years, and I didn't know a whole lot, but I thought this could be fun to learn, kind of learning on the job. So that's how I got involved in the classical, and I did that. Well, I did that for 4 years before 107 signed on in 2013. So I think it seemed to management, it seemed kind of a natural fit that I would play some kind of role in 107. What type of role? Well, that I kind of left up to people that were going to be managing the station. So that was kind of my in, having been
mm,
involved in it for 4 years and having known how we do classical and having a good working knowledge of what type of music we were kind of focused on.
yeah, right, right. Mm. Uh, Now that it's almost over, is there anything that you're going to miss about being around?
I'm going to miss the people. I'm going to miss you.
Ah,
I'll miss
nice to hear.
chatting with you and chatting with
Yeah.
Simon, and of course, all the people that were around when Classic 107 started up. Claudia Garcia, Neil Colligan,
Mm,
and a number of other people whose names
Michael
don't come to
Walsh,
mind right now. Yeah, right.
Roxanne.
Michael Walsh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'll be the biggest part. I'm going to miss the people. More recently, I've been involved more with the writing aspect of what we do at Golden West Radio, writing news stories for or radio news, writing news stories for online for Pemmican Valley Online. I've been enjoying that. I've been enjoying that a lot. I like working with words. It's challenging. It's fun. There's always stuff to learn. There's always new things to learn. And part of the challenge is writing stories in such a way that people want to stay reading. They want to stay connected with the story. It's not necessarily about you know size of your vocabulary. I think it's more about your ability to tell a story, and I enjoy trying to figure out how best to tell the story.
Mm,
Um, so I'll miss that somewhat. Um,
mm,
Mostly, it's the people I've come to know, people I've come to appreciate, friends I've made. Yeah.
yeah, totally. Any plans for retirement for you and your wife? Like, are you and Rana going anywhere? Like, what do you have in mind come Sunday?
Well, we have a son who lives in California, so first order of the day is visiting him. That'll be in September. Um, we're taking our daughter with us, and we're all going to go get together as a family in San Francisco for a week. And we'd like to do some traveling. I'd like to take the girls to the Maritimes. They've never been. I've been there twice. Zach and I drove out there in 2018. Drove there and back. That was a trip of a lifetime. So I'd like to, head to a place like that. And beyond that, there's not a lot of things on my bucket list um, that I can think of. I'm just going to kind of take it as it comes. I've got some hobbies. I enjoy working with wood. I want to learn how to craft some things out of leather. small hobbies that I can do inside, that I can do anywhere.
Mhm.
But beyond that, yeah, no big plans.
Well, Terry, it's been terrific working with you. I'm going to miss having you around, gabbing on the phone as we are talking about, and hearing your voice on our classic 107 airwaves. All the best. And it goes without saying, next time you and your wife are here in Winnipeg, yes, we'll have to go out for a meal or
Yeah.
something. And yeah, I'm going to miss you, my friend. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thanks, Chris. So miss you guys too.